Hello and welcome to a very special live episode. It seems like all we're doing is live episodes these days of the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast for Saturday, January 13th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 231 days, the game against Michigan in 322 days. And as I said earlier, we just do live episodes because just news continues to break right around the time we're going to record these episodes. And it's like, well, let's just get it out now. No need to wait. Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com joins me today. And Tony, the news this time is JT Tuimoloau returning for his fourth season, former five-star defensive end, multi-year starter for the Buckeyes at defensive end. Boy, the Ohio State team, the Ohio State collective, the Ohio State brotherhood, whatever you want to associate, whatever you want to credit for all of this, it sure seems like things are working, and the mood around Ohio State football is real different than it was 2 weeks ago.
I don't even know what you're referring to 2 weeks ago, Tom. The only thing going on right now is everything is great and sunny, even in the sleet and the rain of Columbus, Ohio right now, as the 2 p.m. has hours now become like the returning hour for Ohio State Buckeye juniors, and JT Tuimoloau with 28 career starts coming back to Ohio State, joining just about everybody else to this point. And it would be impossible for Buckeye fans not to be excited about the continued developments, especially what, not just what it means now, but what it's going to mean next season for the Buckeyes.
And what it's going to mean for the Buckeyes next season is, boy, they've got a veteran defensive line returning in a year when it looked like they might not have any defensive line starters returning. The four members of the Ohio State 2021 defensive line recruiting class, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer on the edges, Tyleik Williams, Mike Hall on the interior. That was a class that at the time everyone was extremely excited about. Tons of talent. Boy, these four guys coming in all together. The downside of that is, well, after the third year, typically a lot of those guys tend to turn pro. And even going back to mid-December, I was thinking, boy, if they just got two of these guys back, that would be, probably a really big win compared to how this could go for them. Now they've got three of them back. Mike Hall, the only one who ended up turning pro. He and Marvin Harrison, the only underclassmen so far who have announced that they're going to turn pro. We're still waiting on word from Trevion Henderson. But, man, among the Ohio State has had a lot of talented defensive lines, but to have three of these guys back for their fourth year, plus Ty Hamilton, who was another guy who, was not in that same class, but was someone who could have theoretically turned pro. He's coming back as well. Plus, you've got some talented guys behind them. Boy, that is going to be a defensive line to be reckoned with this fall.
And getting Tyleik Williams back was huge. Ty Hamilton has 13 career starts compared to Tyleik Williams' 12. To give you an idea that Ty Hamilton is almost the forgotten guy, but started, I think, 7 games at nose tackle for the Buckeyes this year. And to get those three, the three juniors in particular, especially with the way Jack Sawyer finished the season, 3 sacks against Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, really looked like not unlike JT Tuimoloau in 2022 against Penn State, where they have their defining games, and so that potential is always there. And to get these 3 guys back, and then also Ty Hamilton announcing his return as well, those 4 guys, I mean, to have 4 guys on the defensive line like that with experience, I've seen it all, but have also experienced a lot of frustrations and heartbreak. That sort of thing will fuel them. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why they're all coming back, is to get rid of that heartbreak.
For sure. I think that's something that it's easy to point to the NIL, and the NIL maybe makes it a little more financially viable to make that decision. But if they win the national championship this year, you might be ready to move on. Now, I mean, how many times did we hear the phrase unfinished business? Jack Sawyer talked about it after the Cotton Bowl. Denzel Burke talked about it after the Cotton Bowl. Both of those guys are back. I think that's clearly a motivational thing. And it's also, I think there's a little bit of a snowball effect where if you don't ever, your mother saying, if someone else jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? There's a certain point where if all of your other teammates are sticking around, or most of your other teammates are sticking around, why wouldn't you stick around? If, then you're not the crazy person who gave it up. Then you're kind of linking arms and jumping off that bridge together to a certain degree. but there's a certain, I think there's a certain momentum that brings, that can factor into this kind of decision too.
Yeah. Well, and it's not jumping off the bridge. They're all staying on the bridge and just all standing there. And that's something Tyleik Williams said when we talked to him between the Michigan game and the bowl game about his decision. And he said what his teammates will be doing factors into his decision as well, because he didn't want to be the only one to come back. I believe he was the first one to announce that he was coming back. But it sure seemed like the way Jack Sawyer talked, the way Tyleik Williams talked beforehand, like this is all leaning this way. Like there were conversations like as of right now, and things can change, but like a month or so ago, like we're all coming back. Now things can change between now and then, but obviously the plan has continued on as it was set essentially that day, and now you go into 2024 with not only unfinished business but real leadership. You've got also young guys behind them and also rising juniors behind them, that they're able to pass all of this stuff on and not just leave a legacy in terms of the way they want to go out in 2024, but how to do it, how to stick around, because I don't think anybody expected 3/4 of this defensive line class to be seeing their senior seasons.
No, I definitely didn't. And, these are not guys who are passing up 6th round, 7th round draft projections. These are, there's are guys, some of these guys have been projected in the, late in the 1st round. Marvin Harrison is a top 5 pick. Marvin Harrison was going to go pro, was always going to go pro. When you're a top 5 pick, the coaches tell you, please go pro. It would be stupid for you to come back. That's even with whatever NIL money you're going to get, you're not going to raise top 5 pick NFL contract kind of money. So it would be a little bit irresponsible to come back in that role. But if you're a late 1st round pick, the math has changed a little bit, and you can now make bring in a decent amount of money. And I'm going to hit a couple questions here comments here that we've gotten. One from Buckeye01, love the strategy using more money on retaining players than recruits. It feels like college football is maybe, you remember like the NCAA basketball teams that would bring back, would have the veteran team, and you didn't have any future lottery guys, but you had like 4 juniors and a senior, and those teams always kind of made a run in March. It feels like you're sort of college football is turning a little bit more into that. That's sort of what Michigan did. And we have a Michigan fan in the comments here that I want to get to, because it's actually an interesting and insightful comment. We'll get there in a minute, but it feels like you're sort of seeing a little bit of a shift in terms of what team construction looks like now under the new realities of college football.
Yeah. The NFL draft is in Detroit this year. Cleveland. No, it's Detroit. Yeah. And so I know months, like this time a year ago, we're thinking there's going to be so many Buckeyes that are going to have an opportunity to be 1st round picks, and, you go and cover it and talk to all these guys. and now there's going to be one guy. And I think a lot of that is because of NIL, in terms of, I don't need to go and set my family up for life right now. I can stay and set them up for the next year quite nicely, and set myself up quite nicely. And then that will be there, because, right now, I think on CBS Sports draft rankings, JT Tuimoloau is the number 4 edge rusher and like the number 23 player listed. And I think if I look at the number 23 player last year in the draft, they signed a 4-year, $13 million deal. So you're talking like $3.5 million a year. And I'm not saying that's what JT Tuimoloau is getting right now, but I'm saying they can find a happy medium, and then that 3.5 to 4 to 5 to 6 million will be there next year, with another outstanding year with outstanding defensive linemen all around you, and this could elevate you to top 10, top 15 pick territory.
And you always hear about guys, and this is not specific to JT. This is kind of a more broad comment on guys in the past who, hey, my mom lives in a bad neighborhood. I want to go pro and, be able to move her to a new house somewhere. You can do that with NIL money. You're not making $30 million in NIL, but there are guys who are making $1 million. You can move your mom to a better house or set your family up in a better situation, or set aside some money to put your whatever cousin, younger brother through college. Like all of that stuff you can do with NIL now. So that has really sort of changed some of the dynamics of some of these decisions. And this is a really interesting comment. Master Toy Museum 1979. As a Michigan fan, I'm excited to see Ohio State's players return to school. Michigan set a standard in returning players to school. I hope this becomes the new norm moving forward. Great for the fan. I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, I think Michigan sort of did the run it back thing last year, and they brought Blake Corum back, and they brought back a whole bunch of the guys, the Mike Sainristills and all those guys who turned out to be real difference makers on this year's Michigan team. It feels like, you have the program sort of chasing the recruits and, throwing the bag at, I don't know, let's pick a college at random, Texas A&M, let's say, just hypothetically. I don't know that model is working necessarily as much as you bring in the guys who want to come in and get developed, and you develop them. And then maybe you can talk them into sticking around and having a veteran sort of model. And you look at Georgia, you look at Alabama under Nick Saban. We'll see what Alabama looks like moving forward. That's a whole separate conversation. But it feels like bring in the guys, and it's not like you're not going to get some NIL money at Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State or Michigan, whatever, as a freshman, but you bring those guys in and then you keep them around. A little stability in college football, that's also not probably a bad thing. And then you can sort of supplement through the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think if you're not using the transfer portal, you're doing it wrong. CC Dabo Sweeney there. But you also, part of keeping your guys is fending off other colleges as well. And I think that's where it gets back to the quote unquote brotherhood. Yes, the NIL, the culture that you have. And as Ryan Day will tell you, you also kind of suss this out in recruiting in terms of you're checking all of these boxes on players who is likely to stay through all of the drama, who is likely to be swayed. And if somebody is swayed by another team, if you kind of get that idea, then they're going to be lower on the pecking order in terms of taking them. So a lot of stuff that you have to check boxes now on guys. And then this is one of it. And, how the poachability of this recruit, that sort of thing. And the ability to keep them. And, Michigan has done that, obviously. They did it. We can go back to 2007, Tom, with Mike Hart, Chad Henne, and Jake Long. Didn't go well for them. Went better this time for Michigan, but it wasn't too long ago that Chase Winovich and the revenge tour, that didn't go well for them either. But this one obviously did work for Michigan. And when you look at the experience they have and they had, and knowing that they're going to be losing a lot of guys, this is one of those things where we know this is the last time. So you kind of give everything you've got. And I think you'll see some of that from Ohio State this year as well.
All right. And we have, we're about 300 people have already hopped on with no notice. So thank you guys all for joining us on YouTube. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Go ahead. Take 3 seconds to do it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, click. All right. Thank you, everyone who just did that. And if you didn't do it, we will accept your thumbs up in the next 30 seconds as well. We are going to also have to wrap this semi soon. I have real life stuff that I will have to handle shortly. Stupid adult responsibilities. That's okay. We've got about 10 more minutes. I do have some more questions from the audience I do want to get through. Let's start with Buckeye 01. Ty Hamilton taking Mike Hall's spot, possibly. Edric Houston rotating in. Hero Canoe. I think the first thing is Edric Houston is coming in as a defensive end. I'm not, he may grow into a 3-tech. The other stuff, I think, he may grow into a 3-tech. I would expect him to start as an edge rusher and sort of start there, and maybe that changes later in his career. Maybe it doesn't. What about the other stuff? Ty Hamilton taking Mike Hall's spot, Hero Canoe, where does he fit in? What is your expectation there?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. Ty Hamilton doesn't think that's Mike Hall's spot. He thinks it's his spot. And, they both started 7 games this year. I think they started once together as well. So, Mike Hall or Ty Hamilton has been the run-based nose tackle, and yet he's also been very effective in the backfield this year. I think 38 tackles to Mike Hall's 24 tackles, I believe, this year. Something like 5 tackles for loss to 2.5 for Mike Hall or something like that. It was not a great year for Mike Hall, as we've talked about in the past, but They're semi-different players, but Hamilton was very good this year. And yeah, I'm with you on Edric Houston. He's a defensive end for now. Hero Canoe, I think they need him to be somebody. I'm wondering if they separate Hero Canoe and Caden McDonald like they did Mike Hall and Tyleek Williams, because I think Hero Canoe, Caden McDonald, one of those guys is the number 2 nose tackle. It's just which one is it? And, can Taiwan Malone get involved at 3 tech behind Tyleek Williams? And can Caden McDonald or Hero Canoe be that other guy? And when we talk to Larry Johnson, maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll say, I don't know where anybody's going to play. They're all going to learn it all. And then we'll go from there like he has forever when it comes to defensive tackles. And they'll all have to play both. Like they're going to learn nose tackle. They're going to learn 3 tech, that sort of thing. And then the other thing, you're going to, with the defensive ends that Ohio State has now, you're going to see more 3-4 defensive end alignments in terms of like the rushman stuff, where you've got Caden Curry sliding inside or JT Tuimoloau sliding inside on passing down. So even if they don't necessarily have a 3rd or 4th defensive tackle that they love or trust right now, they're going to get away with a lot of that by playing more defensive ends inside, I think.
Yeah, they're going to see probably some different defensive alignments this year. Certainly a lot more flexibility in what you can do when you have all these different pieces you can sort of mix and match. 2 quick things on the interior before we move on to the next question. Ty Hamilton, I have said this before, I will say it again. I think maybe the most underappreciated Ohio State player, because he just, a lot like his older brother Devon, came in without any of the recruiting hype. He was a 3-star, and it's a local kid, and you go, oh, well, it's not the South Florida guy or it's the guy out of Texas. It's, it's from Pickerington. He's from Pickerington and it's 3-star, and isn't that nice? And he's a local kid. And then he just kind of keeps contributing every single year, and people keep, he sort of gets lost in the shuffle. And I'm guilty of it as well, where I do the narrative of the 2021 recruiting class. And well, Ty Hamilton was there a year before that, so he's not in that 2021 recruiting class, but he's been every bit as big of a contributor as all of those guys. So first of all, him. Second of all, you mentioned all those names, did not mention Jason Moore, who I think is, he was maybe the highest ranked of the defensive line recruits last year for Ohio State, and was banged up this year. Probably fits in that 3 tech mold at some point. I don't know that we even saw him this year on the field, but that was, I think, more due to injury than anything else. But that's he's another name that is someone I'm very interested to see coming up this spring. Drowsy Dragon says this is like 8 Mike Doss guys coming back. I mean, do you remember the Mike Doss press conference after the 2001 season? And everyone was so sure that he was going to turn pro, and then he came back. And that was an Ohio State team that was also not coming off, exactly the greatest end to its season. They beat Michigan in 2001, and that was obviously not at all the norm back in those days, especially to beat them in Ann Arbor. But they had lost to South Carolina in the Outback Bowl just a couple days before that. And then Mike Doss comes back. And I don't know that I was expecting Ohio State to be a national championship level team in 2002, but Mike Doss was a returning All-American, was really the heart and soul of that defense. And I mean, that was a team that was led by its defense, obviously. So, this is, I don't know if it's 8 Mike Dosses, but boy, it is, you're sort of seeing this decade's version of that kind of return.
And if I recall correctly, Mike Doss said, I'm coming back to win a national championship. And it's like, you just went 7-5. Are you sure you know what you're talking about? Because I don't know that you're aware, but I will credit Phil Steele. I think he had Ohio State 13th to start the season that year in 2002. So he saw it happening, obviously, as well. But yeah, that was a 2-time All-American coming back. You're getting a 2-time All-Big Ten player coming back in JT Tuimoloau. But you're getting a bunch of other All-Big Ten players coming back as well. We'll see what Travion Henderson does. The Mecca Abuka is the second team last year. I think Tyleek Williams is maybe second team this year. So there's a bunch of guys that are of note for sure. And Will Howard.
And Will Howard, yes. This is an interesting mixture of Ohio State using NIL to kind of help keep some of those guys together, but also they've brought in some guys through the portal as well. Quinshon Judkins, Will Howard, and going to guess business is not done being transacted in the portal on the incoming basis for Ohio State, whether that's this month or after spring ball. I know if you look at the portal right now, there's not a ton of names in there. I'm just going to remind everyone, once your head coach leaves, you have 30 days to enter the portal. So Alabama players have another, I'm trying to remember where I was to figure out what night that was. I think that was Wednesday night this week, Wednesday night. So they have another 28 days to enter the portal. So there may be some more names in the portal in the next month, and we'll see. And then wherever Alabama hires their new head coach from, there may be more names from there in the portal as well. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. Let's wrap up with this one from Kyle. Best OSU defense in the past 10 years. I'm going to make you answer this question two different ways, Tony. What is the best OSU defense in the past 10 years? And will 2024 meet or exceed that standard?
I think it's either 2019 or 2016. And I'll answer this better when I know who all they're getting from the portal in case anybody else lands. But there's the potential to have a secondary as good as 2016. Even with these defensive linemen coming back, I don't know that there's a Bosa, and I don't think there's a Chase Young. And that's what each of those two defenses had. And when you have that, it makes everybody better. Now, collectively, maybe this group can get there and shoot. This defense this year, in terms of all of your analytical things, Tom, was one of the best in the last 10, 20 years in college football. Mm-hmm. So it probably already ranks ahead of the 19 and 16 teams, perhaps. But best OSU defense in the past 10 years, potentially, but I'm not going to say that just yet. Give me a month. Give me 28 days, Tom.
Yeah. Golly, Tony, why do you need 4 more weeks? I don't know. Could be anything. Yeah. Well, I suspect this will not be the last emergency podcast we do. If you want to be a part of these emergency podcasts and get notified when we go live and not when you sort of hear about it later, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Hit that bell so that you get that pop-up notification when we do go live. This Ohio State has at least one more underclassman who still has to announce his decision. I feel like I should nervously check Twitter to see if that has happened while we're on, but I have to leave, so it doesn't matter. We can't talk about Trevion Henderson's decision one way or the other until Trevion Henderson announces it. Hopefully later today after I'm done running around with kid stuff. We will be back whenever the Trevion Henderson decision comes out. We will have, of course, more coverage on BuckeyeHuddle.com. Lots of content on the Huddle board, lots of new information on recruiting and some transfer portal stuff, all on the Huddle board that is member exclusive at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So if you want to keep up to date with all the stuff that's happening right now in a very eventful time around the Ohio State football program, that would be a great place to do it. So sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And also make sure, of course, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, you are subscribed there, you hit the bell there, hit a thumbs up there. We appreciate all of that, as those are all little ways you can help support us and what we do. So thank you guys all for joining us. We will be back, I don't know, at some point soon-ish, probably with another breaking news episode. We'll see you then.